Hey everybody, it's Eric from EPautos.com, your libertarian car guy. It is Thursday morning, just about 48 hours ahead of what apparently is a coordinated, orchestrated, nationwide mass protest that's being apparently deliberately fomented. A lot of interesting things about this. I don't think it's about immigration. That's the way that it's presented. I think most Americans in general terms, are not opposed to the idea of immigration. What they're opposed to is illegal mass immigration. I think that's one of the reasons that Trump got elected. He tapped into that. A lot of people on the left will say, oh, people are racist. They don't want the brown people to come over. No, what they don't want are human tsunamis of people. And, more finely, they are sick and tired, I am certainly, of being expected to follow to the letter every single law, including penny ante laws like buckle up for safety and have you got your ear tags on your car? That pulled me over. And of course, I have I've got a driver's license. I have skin in the game, so I can't just basically do what some of these illegals do and say, no, I'm not going to pay, I do not care, because they cannot do anything to me. The illegal guy who's got his car that isn't registered or it's out of date, he doesn't have insurance, blah blah blah. So they impound his beater. Whoop-de-doo. He goes out and gets another beater. He doesn't care. And I'm not, faulting the dude for doing that. I don't like having to get ear tags. The point I'm trying to make is that there's this double standard where we American citizens are expected to get the ear tags, to buy the insurance, to do all these other things. And it's right in our face that there are millions of these people who just don't have to abide by the same rules that we do, and there's something obnoxious about that. Another thing that's obnoxious is that we're made to pay for it. Again, I have zero problem with a guy who wants to come here and work and provide for himself and provide for his family. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot right with that. But what a lot of Americans, me included, don't like are people who come here and expect us to pay for them and to pay for the benefits that they and their families receive. A really good example of this being the way property owners, who really aren't any such thing, are expected to pay these obnoxious and ever-rising taxes on the homes that they are conditioned to believe that they own, but which they'll get kicked out of if they don't pay the taxes. And one of the great things that the money that's taken from them goes to finance is the government schools in their area, right? So if you live in a community where all of a sudden there are a lot of new kids on the block who are the kids of these illegals, and they need more teachers and they need more space, and maybe they need multilingual teachers because the kids don't speak English. And again, I'm not trying to denounce the kids. It's not about that. It's just about this idea that there is an open-ended obligation on the part of American citizens to just absorb it and to pay for it. That's the real problem here. And now we have this huge problem. I mean, literally huge, in that the estimate is that there's 10 million illegal aliens, at least, in the country right now. And to give you some sense of that, I think the entire population of the state of Tennessee is about 7 million people. And to put it in an even finer context, I'm kind of a history guy, so numbers like this interest me. When the Germans were preparing to invade the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, they had roughly assembled an army of about 3 million men. Now, 10 million illegals in the country versus the 3 million that were thrown into the Soviet Union. And the situation is kind of like, imagine that the Russians didn't do anything when the Germans invaded, and they just sort of let 3 million Germans enter their country and get comfortable and cozy in Minsk and Moscow and just sort of be there before they finally decided to do something about it. Of course, the Russians fought back immediately. We didn't, because of course we were under the impression that we weren't being invaded, but in fact we were. I think that's a fair statement. Millions, 10 million people coming into the country in the space of 4 years is absolutely an invasion. We saw it at the border during the weekend of Bernie presidency of Joe Biden. But now they're here, and so the invasion was successful. And what to do about it? Well, it looks like Orange Man is trying to deport a lot of them. And it's hard to argue with that. You broke the law. You're not supposed to be here. It's not a small thing, unless they're going to say we don't have to obey the law, meaning you and me and other Americans, which they're never going to say. So, sorry, you guys got to get back across the border. The problem is it's going to be a Herculean task to do that. And the left isn't really the left. The left are, that's just sort of a soft word for what they are, which is communists. They are using this, as they always use such things, to foment chaos, disorder, and violence, which they hope to take advantage of. And that's what these so-called protests are fundamentally all about. And we'll see whether it goes kinetic. And if it does, it's going to get pretty ugly. Anyway, I just wanted to offer up some thoughts 48 hours before we get to Saturday, when this is all supposed to really get going. More over at EPautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for listening, and we will have more for you again soon.